here. Let's go talking about, I don't think all 136. We have a few buy teams. This is kind of the first week where there's a massive amount of buys. We should expect to see this week by week. We'll give you the insight on who's not playing this weekend. Here are the 18 teams not participating in week 3. We got Louisville, BYU, Oklahoma State, Kansas, UCF, Washington, Sam Houston State, Western Kentucky, Miami of Ohio, NIU, UNLV, Colorado State, San Diego State, San Jose State, and Boise State. All those Mountain West schools. So much fun to say there. Army, James Madison, and UM Monroe, again, are not playing here for week 3. And who they play, now we move into the rest of it. These are the weeknight games. Thursday night, we start with Wake Forest taking on North Carolina State. NC State played Virginia in a non-conference game, and I'm pretty sure this one's also maybe a non-conference game. I didn't check because it's just Wake Forest versus NC State. Wolfpack are 2-0 though. Okay, that's a pretty good start there in Raleigh. NC State is favored by 7.5. That number is rising since the beginning of the week, and that's why we're also going to be going with the Wolfpack, even if they are the road or home team. As we continue through this, we already talked about Indiana versus Indiana State. That's what we think about. Let's go Hoosiers. Colgate plays Syracuse. The Orange got a big comeback win against UConn last week in overtime as they forced that game with a field goal into, again, extra time. Syracuse should have no problem against an FCS Colgate there. As we move now to that bottom row, we got Colorado on the road for the first time this season, heading to Houston, Texas to take on the Cougars. Houston is favored by 5.5. That number is rising. I think it's because of the quarterback news that Colorado is. I'm forgetting the new QB that's slated to start for the Puffs that Primetime put out, as Juju Lewis is not going to be starting, or Caden Salter. That's a little concerning, and I think that's why the lines there are start to not favor, again, CU on the road. We're going Houston. They look pretty clean so far. They won 35-9 against Rice. The week before had a nice win as well. They will, I think, continue to be undefeated, and that's why we're going Houston. Kansas State heads to Tucson, as this is a non-conference game. It's not a Big 12 one, even though they are both Big 12 teams. It's just a home and home series that they scheduled pre-realignment. But Kansas State is who we are going with. They are only 2.5 point favorites. They really need this bounce back win. They embarrassing loss to Army. Already starting out the season with 2 losses again. They were favorites to win the conference. Doesn't look like it's going to be Wildcats there in Arlington for a Big 12 title. But maybe they can get things going and maybe change minds here this upcoming weekend again in Tucson. Arizona, so far they've looked all right. We're just not convinced yet that they're a legit team. They blew out Weber State last week. Week before in week 1, they played Hawaii. Blew them out technically, but that's without a 100% Mike Alejandro. This is like their first big test there for Brett Brennan. We don't think they're going to bear down. We're going to go Wildcats. Avery Johnson, who Arizona couldn't contain last year when this game happened in Manhattan. We think that's going to continue there on Friday. New Mexico versus UCLA in the Rose Bowl. I thought the line here was pretty interesting. Minus 15.5 for the Bruins. If the offense continues to struggle early on, will New Mexico be able to stick in this game? Maybe. The Lobos are 1-1. They got their first win against Idaho State last week. The week before, I'm forgetting who they lost to off the top of my head. Wasn't a pretty loss. But again, this is... Oh no, they played Michigan in Ann Arbor. That's who they played. Another Big Ten school. I think they can make this a game. Maybe that 15.5 points isn't the best line, and it's actually rising. Maybe there's some news out of New Mexico where they have an injury that I'm not seeing. They did have to come back against Idaho State, but UNLV did as well. And they were kind of similar score lines, so that's also kind of why we're gauging this as yeah, I mean, both those teams struggled against the Bengals. But we'll see. We're not going to go New Mexico, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Lobos get a road win in the Rose Bowl there, as it's not a great start for the Bruins, Jason Foster, or Nico Iamaleava. Jeez, that one didn't roll off the tongue nice. As we move to Saturday morning's games, let's go with Oregon, Northwestern. We already kind of talked about that. We'll stick with Oregon as they're favored by 7.5 points. That's crazy. It might be even more than that. Clemson, Georgia Tech. Already discussed that. That line is technically dropping from now to 3.5 points favored for Clemson, but we're going to go with the Tigers still. Oklahoma, again, another one. We're going to go with the Sooners on the road in Philly. Wisconsin, Alabama. Interesting game that we already technically talked about. 21-point favorites for the Crimson Tide. Just to let you know, we're doing our morning show over on YT. Come hang out if you got some time this upcoming Saturday morning, as this is the slate of games that will be covering there this upcoming weekend. Wisconsin again at Alabama, going Crimson Tide. Central Michigan taking on Michigan there in the Big House. Chippewas are 1-1. They had a nice road win against San Jose State last week. Didn't go so well. Forgetting who they played off the top of my head. I think it might have been someone in the Big Ten. Regardless, yeah, not going Chippewas. Michigan should be bouncing back after losing to Oklahoma on the road. Bryce Underwood getting things going there with that offense, and Justice Haynes hitting home runs. Let's go Wolverines. Nebraska hosting Houston Christian there. Nebraska's off to a great start. They are undefeated, and I think they'll continue to be undefeated with a big win over the FCS program. They have Michigan, I believe, in week 4, also at home. So hopefully they're not also looking forward to that game and not focusing on their current week opponent. Towson is taking on Maryland there. We're going to take the Terps. Hasn't been a great start, but they're playing an FCS team. Maryland should be getting the job done there. We keep moving. Another FCS team, Will and Mary, heads over to Virginia. Cavaliers get their first loss last week against NC State. Kind of should have won that game, but they let that one slip away. This is not slipping away of the Cavaliers. Let's go Virginia. As we keep moving down, we got Samford versus Baylor. Baylor had a very impressive win against SMU, forcing that game to overtime and then just coming back after multiple possession leads that SMU had in that game on the road in Dallas. Pretty impressive. Yeah, they're not going to have any problem with Samford. Memphis versus Troy is next up. Troy had a pretty good outing, to be quite honest with you, against Clemson, but I think that was a little bit of a fluke weather delay that they had in their favor. They were up 16-0 in that first half at one point, but here they're playing Memphis, who hasn't been disappointing whatsoever. They blew out Georgia State last week, forgetting who they played the week before. But yeah, Tigers on the road, they are 4-point favorites. Let's go with that. Buffalo takes on Kent State. The Flashes, they got obliterated in Lubbock against Texas Tech. This was an interesting line that was set between the Bulls and, again, Kent State. 21.5-point favorites for Buffalo. That's how bad Kent State is, that they are playing a MAC team and they're still down by by multiple, like 2 possessions. That's 3 possessions, maybe even more. But yeah, we're taking Buffalo because Buffalo, and even before I even saw that line, I thought I had to point that out. 21.5-point favorites. That's crazy. South Alabama, Auburn, kind of talked about that one. We're going Auburn. They're favored by 26 points there. And then the final game here in the morning section, we got New Hampshire taking on Ball State. We're going to take Ball State to get their first win of the season against that FCS opponent. Don't disappoint us, please, Ball State, and be the team that loses to an FCS team this week. Let's keep moving into now the noon games, or maybe early afternoon, depending on where you are in the country. But at least noon games for here for the West Coast. UConn goes to Delaware. Wait, where am I? Do I have that up, bro? Sorry, I'm checking my notes. Why don't I have that game? Oh, I misordered these. Give me a second. Let me move these around. Oh, I didn't put it on the... I didn't put the slide up. Give me a sec. I got the slide right here. All right. Full screen again, and back to that. There we go. Sorry, I missed a slide. We have UConn taking on Delaware again for the noon games. Both teams are 1-1. The Huskies are favored by 10 points. Blue Hens, they went over to Boulder, Colorado. I don't want to say they put up a fight, but they made Coach Prime question his quarterback at least. So there's something there. UConn blew a game there against the Orange of Syracuse. So yeah, UConn by multiple possessions makes a lot of sense. So let's go Huskies. Villanova, Penn State, we kind of already talked about that one. Let's go Nittany Lions. Same thing for Georgia, Tennessee. In the beginning of the stream in our rank section, we talked about the Volunteers, and even in the beginning of the stream, that was the final of the 5 games. We went in depth with previews. We're going with the Volunteers, yes, breaking that winning streak that Georgia has. And to mention, Bulldogs are favored by 3.5 points. Oregon State heads over to Lubbock, Texas to take on the Red Raiders. The Beavers are 0-2. They try to come back against Fresno State at home in Corvallis. Didn't go so well. They had a turnover that ended up being like 36-24. A week before, they got bodied by Cal like 35-9. So what does that mean, taking on one of the fastest scoring offenses in the country? Well, it's going to be a bad time for Oregon State. They're probably going to go 0-3. That's why we're going with Texas Tech. Texas Tech, they dusted Kent State in the flashes. Like, that was just an ugly game. Defensive touchdowns. We might see that here. But there was, I guess, maybe a positive for the Beavers. Malik Murphy was the best group of 6 quarterback last week, even though they lost again to Fresno State. Yes, if he continues that form and the defense gets their things somewhat in order to kind of slow down Texas Tech, maybe they have a chance. At the moment, the line is a 24-point favorite for the Red Raiders at home, and I think that might actually happen. Maybe there's even more points, because so far Oregon State has not looked good on defense. USC versus Purdue, one of our in-depth games that we previewed. We're gonna go with the Boilermakers. They're not favored. USC has a 21.5 point line. That is insane. But again, the reason why we're going with Purdue, USC hasn't won on the road in the Big Ten against a non-West Coast Big Ten team. So there's that. We like the running back of the Boilermakers. They have been doing a good job in having long sustaining drives. And on top of that, USC really hasn't played anyone. Georgia Southern also got blown out the week before against Fresno State. And then they played Missouri State. Again, they haven't played a real opponent, and they should have a real test there in Lafayette, Indiana. That's why we're going Purdue. Crazy one, but something that we've always kind of done since we started doing this anyways, is picking against USC for funsies. Norfolk State takes on Rutgers. Michael Vick comes to town there against the Scarlet Knights. Yeah. Rutgers, Yeah, we're not going with the FCS team. No way, no how. Youngstown State heads over to East Lansing to take on Michigan State. We're taking the Spartans. Nice overtime win against Boston College. Yeah, let's go Spartans. Very interesting one. We got Washington State heading over to North Texas, take on the Mean Green. North Texas is favored by 6 points, and that keeps on rising since the beginning of the week. And I think initially I was like, yeah, let's go maybe Washington State when I saw it on the list. But when I was making the graphic and I'm like picking who I got, I was like, no, I'm going to go North Texas. They might have struggled against Western Michigan last week. Had to force that game, I think, to overtime, 33-30. But Washington State hasn't looked so good. They had a decent game against San Diego State last week where they got the win against Pullman, but the week before they played Idaho. I know it was a Battle Palouse, a rivalry game. But again, yeah, we're going to go North Texas. They have, again, one of the fastest scoring offenses the last couple of seasons. I think they're going to continue that and get ahead there against Wazoo. So let's go Mean Green. SMU is on the road against Missouri State. Missouri State got an impressive and surprising win against Marshall. I thought the Thunder and Herd would have done us good, but they didn't. And then SMU, they're going to be bouncing back after a disappointing loss to Baylor. They had multiple chances of being up by multiple possessions, and then on top of that, they had 2 field goal attempts that were no good. One to win the game, one to not continue overtime. They should be improving there and getting a big road win against Missouri State. The next one, we have a rivalry game, guys. The Backyard Brawl. The 108th Backyard Brawl between Pitt and West Virginia. We're going Pitt. Simple as that. West Virginia has looked awful, completely awful so far under Rich Rod, but it's kind of understandable. They're one of the few programs this offseason where they had just a mass exodus of players, obviously an influx of ones as well, and trying to get things going. Very disappointed to see that offense against Ohio last week, only scoring 10 points. I think it might be a very ugly backyard brawl, and I don't think they can be able to bounce back. Holstein is probably going to have a nice game for himself, especially if this defense of Pitt can exploit the quarterback situation of the Mountaineers. I know it's in Morgantown, but I'm still taking Pitt. This shouldn't be a close game, even though right now the line is at -7 for the Panthers. I think that might be a little disrespectful because of the way West Virginia has started off this season. I got Pitt by maybe multiple possessions there. So yeah, we go with the backyard brawl prediction to now Richmond versus North Carolina. Bill Belichick, not the best start so far as a college head coach. Even last week, only winning on the road 20-9 against Charlotte. Very bad Charlotte team. But they play Richmond. Should be a week where he kind of figures out what the depth chart is really going to be looking like throughout the season. Hopefully getting Gio Lopez some more confidence. Yeah, and you really got to get that defense to be a hell of a lot more solid than we saw against TCU, and get it ready for some ACC opponents here in 2025. As we keep moving, we got Northwestern State taking on Cincinnati. Northwestern State got blown out last week, so they're going to also get blown out against Cincinnati. The Bearcats had a rough start somewhat against Bowling Green, took their time, eventually pulled away against the Falcons. They shouldn't be doing that. This should all be Cincinnati. Kind of like their wide receiver Caldwell. He had a really nice play this past week. Sorsby, I think he's going to get things going. It was just a disappointing loss there against Nebraska and Arrowhead by a 1-point difference. You got to get that for the Big 12. But yeah, they'll be going 2-1 after this weekend. We have Incarnate Ward here at the bottom row taking on UTSA. We're going to go Roadrunners, who are 0-2, but they have one of the best running backs, at least I think, in college football, and Robert Henry Jr. Go check out some of his highlight. He's just a crazy running back going downhill, and then he can also bust big plays. He did that against Texas A&M last week, and unfortunately, 2 weeks ago, and then unfortunately last week, he busted up some big plays against Texas State, but it just wasn't good enough against that in-state opponent for the I-35 trophy, which went back home to San Marcos. But the Roadrunners bouncing back against an FCS team makes a whole hell of a lot of sense there. Morgan State and Toledo is going to wrap up this slide. Going to go Toledo. They got their first win of the season last week. They played really well against Kentucky in Lexington. I think the defense is going to be doing some work once Mac Nation gets going. Let's go with them over the FCS Morgan State team there. As now we get to this slide. These are the early afternoon or maybe late afternoon games, depending on where you are in the country. We got Iowa State versus Arkansas State. Kind of already talked about it. We're going Cyclones. Also talked about the Missouri Raging Cajun game there. Let's go Tigers. Same thing for the Longhorns versus the Miners. There in Austin. Let's go Texas. To finish out that top row with the ranked teams, we talked a little bit about it already with Miami versus USF. Miami's favored by 17.5 points. We think that number doesn't hold. USF will definitely make it a game, but we're unfortunately going to pick the Hurricanes. It is what it is. The Cinderella story can't last forever, unfortunately. Liberty heads over to Bowling Green. Both teams are 1-1. Liberty losing to Jacksonville State last week for their first Conference USA game. Bowling Green lost to Cincinnati in week 2. So it's interesting. I'm going Bowling Green. I really like what Eddie George is doing over there. Can't really name a player on their roster at the moment. But I will eventually by the end of the season, especially if they are turning things around, maybe going 2-1, because that's what we're picking. Liberty, I think, are falling off, guys. They are not the same as they were at least 2023 for sure. But 2024 still wasn't a great year, and I think they're getting into that like average Conference USA team. There's definitely some other programs that have been improving in the offseason. And I think this is where we see Bowling Green get one over that conference for the MAC. So let's go Falcons. Even though, again, the Flames are favored by 6. We did it last week where I think the Flames were favored by 6.5 against the Gamecocks of Jacksonville State. So we're kind of doing the same thing here for week 3. Next up, we got Nevada versus Middle Tennessee State. Both of these teams, not good starts. The Raiders are 0-2. They lost to Wisconsin last week, which wasn't a good game for the Badgers. And then the week before, they got dominated by Austin Peay, an FCS team. And then for the Wolfpack, they played Sacramento State. They almost lost that game. That wasn't a very good outing against another team at that level. That was 20-17, if I'm not mistaken. And they got completely obliterated against Penn State in week 1. So yeah, not very good teams here, which is kind of hard to gauge. The Wolfpack are favored by 9. I was already going in picking Nevada because of what Middle Tennessee State did in week 1, but this game is going to be ugly. But let's go Nevada. Hopefully they don't disappoint and get a win against a Conference USA foe there. We move over to Mississippi State taking on Alcorn State. Starkville Dogs got a big win against Arizona State. They're going to continue this good form and go 3-0 against that FCS program. An interesting one. I'm not too sure if this is labeled as a rivalry yet or what the rivalry is between FAU and FIU, Florida Atlantic, Florida International. We're going to go with the Owls. I think they've so far looked better. They both have played Big Ten teams. I think Maryland and Penn State are totally two different levels there in the Big Ten. But FAU put up a decent fight there in the first half against the Terps versus FIU, who didn't score a single point. But also, these teams are 1-1. FAU did look somewhat good against Florida A&M last week. That's also kind of why we're going in with the Owls. But the Panthers are favored somehow, some way by 2.5 points. I think this game last year, we went with FAU and they lost. But I think this year, it's going to be a little bit different, guys. Let's go Owls. We got Merrimack taking on Kennesaw State on the very bottom left column there. If you can call it that, I guess. It's like middle of the other two columns. Kennesaw State, for sure. Merrimack, they almost got the upset against Kent State, but FCS schools are always beating that program, unfortunately. Here, Kennesaw State should be bouncing back. They almost beat Wake Forest in week 1. That was 10-9. And then last week they played Indiana, got blown out. Should be a nice bounce back, and they get their first win of the season, as they'll be getting into Conference USA play here pretty soon. So yeah, let's go Kennesaw State. Eastern Kentucky there plays Marshall. This is a game I'm actually worried about. Marshall 0-2 has not looked good. I mean, they're not going to look good against Georgia really ever. Last week they were disappointing and losing Missouri State. But yeah, we're going to go Marshall. Hopefully they don't disappoint us. But I would not be surprised if they get upsetted against Eastern Kentucky. As we move on, we got Monmouth taking on Charlotte. The 49ers have yet to win a game this season. I think this is for sure a game they add in the win column. But Monmouth, they played FIU last year, won in incredible fashion. I think it was a fumble that was in the end zone that stopped the Panthers from coming back. I even got into a nice little conversation with their defensive coordinator in the offseason about it. You play to the whistle, and I think Monmouth will be doing that. But Charlotte gets their first win of the season. They should not disappoint us there. As we continue now into the late afternoon games, or maybe it's a nightcap game section for you, depending on where you are. We already talked about Ohio versus Ohio State. I think one thing I do have to mention about that game, the battle of the mascots. You got Rufus versus Brutus. The Buckeyes mascot versus the Ohio mascot. The last time these two guys played each other in the shoe, let's just say Ohio's mascot, he was going after Brutus there. That might be the only thing where it's close between the two. Other than that, it's going to be all Ohio State. We got Illinois versus Western Michigan. Fighting Alumni for sure there. We already talked about that. Ole Miss versus Arkansas. This is a 7-point favorite for the Rebels. They should be holding that and getting the job done for Lane Kiffin. Or is it this year's Kentucky game? Maybe, but we don't think so. Let's go Ole Miss. Old Dominion plays Virginia Tech. Very interesting game because Virginia Tech hasn't won. They're 0-2, but they did play Vandy. They did play South Carolina. Old Dominion does put up some good fights. They made it very challenging for Indiana early on. If they can hit big plays, hit some home runs, maybe the Monarchs have a chance. They are not favored, as the Hokies have a 7-point line in favor for them. And I think we should expect Virginia Tech to be getting their first win of the season, especially at home against Old Dominion there. As we move back over to the left column, now into the second row, we have Jacksonville State playing Georgia Southern. And this was one I was really surprised to see the line. Georgia Southern gotten blown out for their first two games, and somehow, some way, They're favored by 3.5 against a Jacksonville State team that defied the odds last week against Liberty. I'm going Gamecocks. I'm going to go Gamecocks until they prove me wrong. And Georgia Southern, well, they proved me wrong against Fresno State, so they have been so far disappointing. That's the one where we're risking it for the biscuit. I think it's that one, Purdue versus USC, Liberty taking on Bowling Green. Those are some of the examples of us going against the grain. FAU, FIU. I think that's 4 so far that I can go off the top of my head with. We got Murray State taking on Georgia State there. Panthers 0-2, off to a rough start. Unfortunately, we accidentally messed up the graphic last week and we picked them over Memphis. That was a huge mistake. We're not making that mistake this week, but we're definitely going Georgia State against the FCS team. As we keep moving, we got Southern Miss hosting Appalachian State. The Mountaineers, let's just say they haven't been looking themselves, and there might be a little bit of a fall off maybe this season, even though they're undefeated. Southern Miss played Mississippi State pretty well in week 1. They got their first win last week against Jackson State. We're also going to risk it a little bit. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Appalachian State is favored by 2 points. We think Southern Miss is going to get the job done. We like the new regime that came over from Marshall that won the Sun Belt last season. We think they're going to figure out this week as the Mountaineers come into town, and we think the Mountaineers are going to be losing. Prairie View State heads over to Houston to take on Rice. We're going to go the Owls. Rice are 1-1. They proved us wrong in week 1 against the Raging Cajun. So let's go with them this week. I think that was the other game where we messed up on the graphic, where we picked them over Houston. That was a big mistake. They lost 35-9. This week they should be winning against Prairie View. We already talked about Florida versus LSU. We're going you Bengals there, baby. Same thing for Texas A&M and Notre Dame. We went into a deeper dive of that game in the beginning of the stream. We're taking the road team, and another one where we're going against the grain. There's quite a few actually this week where we're like, nah, we're not picking the favorites. Let's go Aggies. Eastern Michigan heads down to Lexington to take on Kentucky. We're going Wildcats. Eastern Michigan is 0-2. They lost to Texas State by multiple possessions in week 1. Last week they got ragdolled. Who did they get ragdolled? I'm forgetting who they got ragdolled by, but it wasn't a pretty game, I could tell you that. And yeah, we're definitely not going to Eastern Michigan. Let's go Kentucky. We got UMass heading up to Iowa City to take on the Hawkeyes. Let's go Iowa to bounce back, and definitely blowing out the Minutemen, but not by much. Not by much, guys, because that's just not the Hawkeye way. We have New Mexico State versus Louisiana Tech. This is another interesting one here, guys. New Mexico State is undefeated. They beat Tulsa 21-7. And then they beat, I think it was Bryant the week before. Louisiana Tech had a great outing, to be quite honest with you, against LSU. Their defense looks pretty solid. And if they can continue that defensive form somewhat, I definitely think they can have themselves a win here. That's why we're taking them. They're also favored by 10 points. I don't think it's going to be that far apart. I think it's going to be a close game for the Bulldogs. And we think they're going to go 2-1 after this weekend. And yeah, the Aggies get their first loss of the season there. Down into that middle game, bottom row, we have East Carolina taking on Coastal Carolina. Chandlers have looked completely ugly so far this season. I think they are what 1-1 if I'm not mistaken. And then East Carolina, they are also 1-1. They had a tough game against North Carolina State the week before last. They looked pretty good, to be quite honest with you. If I'm not mistaken, they had to end that game with an interception in the end zone where they were trying to make it a game, but unfortunately came up short. They will not be coming up short against Coastal Carolina. Let's go Pirates. The final game, another one we went in depth in, Vanderbilt versus South Carolina in the beginning of the stream and also in the rank section of our pick'ems. We are going to go with the Gamecocks. Let's keep going. Oh, friendly reminder, this upcoming weekend, we will have a watch along of Texas A&M versus Notre Dame. I was supposed to do that when we got to that part of the slide. We'll be on the front page of Rumble in the sports section on Saturday night, so you don't need to follow or anything like that, or look for the other channel. We will be there ready to go. Come join us. And the final slide, the Nightcap Games. We have Utah heading over to Laramie, Wyoming. Another one we did in the rank section. Let's go Utes. Same thing for Tulane. We are picking them over Duke. The Green Wave are only favored by a point, and that number has dropped since the beginning of the week. So it's going to be a very close game, but we think Tulane has more than enough to be beating that ACC program. As we go into Abilene Christian, heading down to Fort Worth, Texas to take on Texas Christian there. The Horned Frogs had a bye last week. Impressive win, though, in week 1 against North Carolina. A complete blowout in Chapel Hill. They look pretty good so far. We'll continue to see them looking good as they're playing an FCS team that they should be beating there at home. Let's go Horned Frogs. Tulsa hosts Navy. Tulsa lost to New Mexico State. There's one reason why we're not picking the Golden Hurricanes, but also Navy has looked pretty solid so far this season. Yeah, I really like the offense. If the defense can shut things down against Tulsa, should be more than a convincing win there for the midshipmen. Let's go Navy. We're moving over back to the left column. We have Akron taking on UAB. We're going to take the Blaze. The Zips just have not looked good so far this year at all. I don't think they've even scored a point against Nebraska or Wyoming. They've all been shutouts. I don't know if UAB is going to shut them out, but it'll be a very low scoring offense for the Zips. Let's go Blaze to go 2-1 here in 2025. Next one is in the Mountain West. We have Air Force taking on Utah State. We're going to go Falcons. It's kind of surprising, but it is what it is. Utah State looked decent in the first half against Texas A&M, but just Air Force has, I guess, improved somewhat. The offense looks like it's getting things going. They scored a lot of points in week 1 that I was really surprised to see, and they keep on keeping, and that's why we're gonna go Falcons. It kind of feels like maybe the potential of what they did in 2023, but not as good, if that makes any sense. So let's go again with Air Force. Southern heads over to the Valley to take on Fresno State. We're gonna go Valley Dogs. They, since the Kansas State loss in week 0, looked pretty good. A blowout win against Georgia Southern, and then an impressive win on the road in Corvallis against Oregon State. So yeah, there's no reason to not pick Fresno State in this one, especially against Southern. Let's go Valley Dogs. Interesting one, a very, very interesting one. We got Minnesota here on the West Coast to take on the Cal Berkeley Bears. This one, line is 1.5 points for the Golden Gophers, and that's not the reason why we're totally picking them. I think the defense is going to be able to definitely exploit the Cal offense, even though Sagapolo Lutelli, the true freshman quarterback for Cal, has looked pretty impressive so far in the collegiate level. But I think, again, Minnesota's defense is going to be good. And also on top of that, their running game and Taylor in the backfield for them, going to be running probably all over Berkeley here in Northern California. Let's go Minnesota. Boston College also heads over to the West Coast. This time it's still in Northern California, but in Palo Alto to take on Stanford. We're not taking the nerds of Palo Alto. They have just looked completely awful. They need to make a quarterback switch. Goldbertson just doesn't look like he knows anything about anything when he needs to throw the ball. He looks so far behind in his reads. This goes back to the Hawaii game on week 0. Last week, they got pretty much outclassed by BYU. I know the scoreline didn't show an impressive win for the Provo Cougs against Stanford, but the Cardinal only got past the 50 like 1 or 2 times, if I'm not mistaken. It was basically like not 3 and outs, but Stanford trying to move the ball and not really getting past the 50. And then on top of that, like, it seemed like BYU didn't really open the playbook as well. They didn't really have to. But BC under Bill O'Brien is definitely going to be doing a great job there. You know, the NFL experience of moving from coast to coast should be getting his Eagles more than ready to get their first ACC win against Stanford there. Let's go BC. The middle game, Texas State versus Arizona State. This game was so good last year there in San Marcos, where Arizona State had to wait after Texas State thought they won the game and had their students and fans storm the field. And then they had to replay that down, and then Arizona State won. But yeah, that's how close this game has been. And I think it's still going to be as close. Texas State has just been a team that doesn't want to go away. I like their quarterback, Johnson. Their running back, Sparks, who was a completely electric player last week against UTSA. Texas State is also undefeated. Is this them trying to make a statement of why they're going to the Pac-12? It would not just be a big win for the Sun Belt, but them obviously making that step in 2026 and being the Texas representative in that new conference or rebirth conference, getting one over a team that left it the year prior. But we're going to go Arizona State. They should be bouncing back. Again, establishing the run game, putting some pressure off of Sam Levitt and trying to get the ball just to Jordan Tyson, what it feels like, to be honest with you. And yeah, let's go Sun Devils, who also have been pretty solid at home. I think they have one of the top 10 home winning streaks currently in the country, and I think they're going to continue that here against Texas State. Final game we talk about here in week 3 is Portland State heading over to Hawaii. This is the game that'll have maybe some daylight in it while it's pitch black at your house. We're not going Vikings. Portland State has been awful so far this season. Let's go Rainbow Warriors. They will be going 3-1 and off to a great start. They're going to be making a bowl game, I think, for sure, this season. Michael Alejandro, as long as he's also healthy, they should be in the driver's seat to, again, make a maybe not just a bowl game, but a solid bowl game. How about that? But yep, that has been week 3's games. Last week we went 67-16 in our pick.